Ranked is in its worst state right now, and a lot of players will spend most of their time practicing in creative, so I tested over 30 different maps to find the best ones to improve your aim, mechanics, and fighting, as well as tips to get better faster. Aim maps could be split into two categories, PvE and PvP. PvE maps are the ones you could play solo, and as creative has evolved, so have the aiming scenarios. You have sentry bots, targets, NPCs that mimic player movement, and even carbon copies of Kovacs. While there are a lot of maps that include aim training, the two maps that stand out are Skaavok and Pxlarized Mechanics Map version 4. These maps have the widest variety of scenarios to choose from and show your stats so you can track your improvement, but if I had to pick just one map to go with, it'd be Raiders because he has the most updated and unique scenarios which I think translate better in game. Like this full box 200 scenario where you could box the AI then pump them. It's difficult for me to hit heavy shots against a player on the cone sometimes, and while it's not the exact movement of a player, this is the closest you could get from outside the real game. Unless of course you're playing against another player, and the best maps for that would include aim duels, headshot map, and other free-for-alls like Turtle Wars and realistic PvP. Aim duels are the best way to practice aim, playing against real movement in 50 different scenarios from shotgun and SMG to gliders and surge tags. Playing these scenarios will expose any bad habits you have while aiming, so pay attention to those and actively look to fix them while playing. When playing shotgun scenarios, I noticed I had to bring my crosshair up every time I tried to hit a headshot, so I started holding my crosshair higher and was much more consistent in hitting headshots. You want to treat aim duels like Kovacs, running the same scenario a few times before moving on, giving yourself a chance to correct the mistakes you made in the last round. If you just jump around from scenario to scenario, you won't get a chance to do that. Headshot map has fallen in popularity, but it's still a great way to practice aim. You and 15 other players are in the Turtle Wars box, and you have 10 minutes to see who can get the most kills, but the only way to kill an opponent is by hitting max damage. Doing this can help you find and correct a lot of bad crosshair habits and create better ones. I played 100 rounds of this for a video a year ago, and the improvement my shotgun aim showed. Another good aim map that's been popular since creative has been out is Turtle Wars by Martoz. This is the same concept as headshot map, except you don't need to hit max damage. You could try to practice your peaks and fighting in this map, but most people are going for clips and 50-50ing, which makes for good aim practice. Another map that's good for this is realistic PvP. You and 15 other players fly in the fight, and you get 5 points per kill, 1 point for an assist, and -3 for every death, with first to 100 points winning. Just like Turtle Wars, you could choose to play however you want, but as someone who struggles with aim, I found the most beneficial way to play was to get in as many aim duels as possible and focus on not flicking or shaking with the pressure of dying because you respawn right away and could try again. I saw significant improvement in my aim and patience on shots once I started to practice like this. So if aim is something you struggle with, try to make that your main focus in maps like these over just fighting. Moving on to mechanics, there's a lot of different parts to train them, which makes for a lot of different options when it comes to practice, so choosing which map is best is a lot less straightforward than aim training. However, two maps that I think are the best options are Pxlarized Mechanics Map version 4 and Jivan's practice map. Raider has been making practice maps for as long as creative has been out, and he continues to evolve his maps for the best practice. You have the piece control tunnels where you build an edge through all the empty space, and bot tunnels where you build an edge through the empty space but now have a target you want to piece and shoot without exposing yourself. You also have the edge training section where you can select which edge you want to practice, and it shows you the most efficient crosshair path in order to get to it. But now you can choose between static and movement, forcing you to edit from different angles. A new section of this map is the peak practice. You have to make an edit and hit the strafing bot without exposing yourself for too long or you'll take damage. This is good for helping you know which peaks are good and which aren't, as well as getting you into the habit of peeking and practicing like a real game. Depending on your skill level, you can adjust the size and reaction time of the bot, so this section could be useful at any level. The next section is the piece control tunnels combined with peak practice. You have to build to the bot, then piece control and shoot them while staying behind cover. There's 30 different scenarios chosen at random for non-repetitive practice. The next section I don't use that much but could be useful is the clutch practice section. You could choose to be 175 or 125 HP, and you have to take out 2 to 4 bots spraying at you, simulating a scenario where your teammates are dead and you have to clutch the fight. The last section is free building, where you can change the island speed instead of your speed, which means you won't go flying all over the place when you go to jump and do other retakes. If you want to reset the builds, you could just emote, and the best feature of this is that you could spawn bots to free build with, that way you could build with a purpose instead of aimlessly building. If you do want to see ways you can improve your mechanics by free building, check out the video in the top right corner or in the description. The second map is Jivan's practice map. This map is very beginner friendly, but also has some drills that more advanced players could benefit from. The simplest section is the editing, which has pre-built structures where you can edit up and down from single to quad edits. The next section is guided free builds, where it shows you where to build to perform fundamental moves like cone flips or clicks jumps. If you ever get confused or don't know what to do for a scenario, you can hit the tutorial button and Jivan explains what you need to do. Next is the rapid piece control section, which is like piece control peak training on Raiders map. You take damage if you expose yourself for too long, but a lot less building leading up to the bot, which sometimes makes it confusing on how you're supposed to piece control. There's also a free building with bots section, and I like this one more than raiders because you have to build up to get to these bots and they spawn depending on where you already are. You can choose to turn damage on, which can help you work on blocking your angles when building up to the bot, as well as take a good peek after your builds. Martoz also just came out with a free building map with a bunch of bots walking around and in the air, so you have more freedom to do what you want instead of having to build towards one bot. Last is the most unique drill, which is reactive tunneling. You need to tunnel while staying in the circle, and the arrow tells you what direction you need to go in. If you're a beginner, you can keep it on slow mode, and if you're more advanced, you can put it on the fast setting and try to stay in the circle for a minute. Try not to miss any builds and swiftly change layers when trying to stay in the circle. With all these maps getting more and more advanced, there's some drills that get left out but are still worth practicing, like edit towers, which help you work on edit timing in Raid's Mechanics Map version 3, pre-firing practice that can be found in places like Ken Bean's Realistic Piece Control and Martoz 1v1s, or facing practice that could be found in Pxlarized Mechanics Training. There's no one mechanics map that covers every skill, and a map that's not useful to one person might be useful to another. It all depends on what you're trying to work on and what you prefer to practice. I prefer to use Raider's Piece Control Map version 3 over other piece control tunnels because I could consistently practice one scenario and there's 15 to choose from, but someone else might do polarized tunnels instead because they're more beginner friendly. At the end of the day, if you enjoy practicing the way you are and it's still challenging, continue to do that, because if you switch to doing something a little bit more efficient but don't enjoy it as much, you're less likely to practice it, and consistency is more important when it comes to improving. Just make sure you're practicing properly. Too many people run through piece control tunnels just to make a 50-50 at the end. Doing this is creating bad habits that will transfer in game and get you killed. When you see pros do these drills, they never make bad peaks because they're practicing to improve, not just for the sake of running through drills. This is some advice Pxlarized gave in one of his videos, echoing what I just mentioned about realistic practice.
And pretty much your goal is to piece every single section of the box. So you want to make sure you're getting piece in every single part and taking a good right hand peek at the end of your piece, and making sure that you can't get shot by the bot at all. Try your best to reset the wall after killing the bot. As you can see, there's like a slight second after you kill it that you still have time to reset it, like it doesn't just instantly teleport you. So try your best to really make this realistic practice. Make sure you're hitting max damage shots, and make sure you're getting the shot off on a good right hand and resetting the wall.
Lastly, there's fighting maps. There's endless fighting maps depending on what you're trying to improve, so there's no way to choose one map that's the best. To split maps into sections, you have PGs, Zone Wars, Box Fights, Realistics, and Free-for-all or player versus player maps. PGs or build fights are the most common thing to see pros playing, where you have unlimited mats and your mechanics are unrestricted, allowing you to do whatever you're capable of in fights. You can practice being consistent with your builds, edits, and retakes, and like I just mentioned, the amount you improve in PGs is dependent upon how serious you take it. If you're focused on trying to piece control and predict your opponent, you'll see a lot more improvement than if you're just edit coursing and trying to clip the other player, and probably end up bringing bad habits into real games, piece controlling into a 50-50 edit. And I'm speaking from experience, as this happened to me plenty of times. Box fights are one of the best ways to practice that translate directly to the game. All the angles and peaks you use here could be used in real game, and you'll notice the best box fighters also happen to be the best fighters because that's all they're really doing in game. When playing box fights, be sure to play aggressive and test what angles and peaks you can get away with, because it's better to learn here than in a tournament. Next is realistics, which you could probably guess is the most realistic way to practice fighting. You have in-game loadouts, limited mats, or in the in-game setting. Just like in box fights, this is where you want to be testing new things and not worry about dying, that way you know what works for when you play a real game. Last but not least, you have PvPs and free-for-alls. I saved these for last because these could be good and bad. You have all the forever Zone Wars and Box Fight maps, as well as realistic PvP and 32-man Zone Wars. The concept of all of these maps are great and could definitely help you improve, however if you're good enough or get a bad lobby, this isn't necessarily the best practice. Since you respawn so quick, there's really no consequence to dying, which causes players to play pretty careless and unserious. Not that you should expect everyone in the creative matchmaking to play serious either, since there's a lot of players in there that have fun and not necessarily reach a high level on the game. But the quality of your practice depends more on other players than how you play for the most part. Unless of course you play with friends who are also trying or have a custom lobby. If you're not at a level where you can run through these lobbies, I definitely recommend these maps because it's non-stop action and practice, which is great for improving fast. For those of you who are good enough to run through the lobbies, this isn't to say you shouldn't play these maps because you could definitely improve with them, but just keep in mind that there may be better ways to practice what you're trying to improve on. While creative is a great tool to improve, there's no replacement for practicing in game, and it's the best thing you could do if you want to improve. This season of ranked maybe not, but in general make sure you're playing a lot of ranked. The key to improving is not caring about your rank and just experiment with new things and learn from your mistakes. Contrary to the beliefs of a lot of lower level players, rank doesn't matter and you shouldn't care about it. A ranked system where you can speedrun to the top rank in the day, hit it without fighting anyone, and have over 1 million people in it is not a real rank system. There's no prize you win for hitting Unreal, so don't worry about dying because just like creative, there's no real consequence. But to be productive while playing, you need to experiment and make mistakes and have those deaths so you can learn from them and get better. To recap, the best aim maps are Pxlarized Mechanics Map version 4 if playing alone, and Headshot Map and Aim Duels when playing against people, with Turtle Wars and Realistic PvP being good alternatives. The best mechanics maps are Pxlarized Mechanics Map version 4 and Jivan's Practice Map, with honorable mentions to Raiders Mechanics Map version 3, Polarized Mechanics Map, and Raiders Peace Control version 3. And the best fighting maps are Build Fights, Box Fights, Realistics, and here are a few popular free-for-all and PvP maps out right now. Make sure you get realistic practice as that's just as important as the maps you play. Prioritize enjoyment and consistent practice over slightly more efficient practice at the cost of consistency. And make sure you use creative to supplement in-game practice, not replace it. I covered everything you need to know about how to improve in creative except the single best way to improve your mechanics, which you can find in this video. Like and subscribe, I'll catch you guys later.